All right, all right. Allan Aguirre with your Incorruptible 2-minute warning. It is Friday. We are in Friday mode. That's Friday mode. Okay. As you can tell, I've got some. Maybe you can tell. I don't know if you can tell. I've got some stuff going on in my mind. I want to share before we. Well, because it'll tie in, but we are in Romans 13. I think we're going to finish chapter 13. We're going to try. You know what? We can do it. Let's finish chapter 13 because it's got some stuff going on here. So this is going to be a little bit of a long one because then next week we can begin with chapter 14, which is unfortunately so chapter 13. The top part of chapter 13, the top half of chapter 13 is used a lot by Christianity to, I know, right? Breathe, it's all good. The top part of chapter 13 is used a lot by church to suggest that we need to be completely in alignment with our government and our authority. And so it's they use this as a case against what's the word? Oh man, there's an actual word. I totally went blank. When you don't civil disobedience. All right. I also know for a fact governments will use this, will quote this to pastors, telling pastors that they need to push this on their congregants. It's. I know that sounds weird, and that would fall under the heading of conspiracy for some people. Oh, we haven't started anything. We haven't even begun to we haven't even started talking about conspiracy. Okay, so I know that for a fact. So there's that, and then the second part of chapter 13, which we will do today, is called fulfilling the law through love in the English Standard Version. That's what they call it. And that's used to tell Christians, to tell their people how we don't have to keep the law or the Torah in any way, shape, or form. We just need to love. Well, that's wrong too. So there's the secret agenda that's been going on for 18 plus 100 years. This chapter is used for two of those agendas. And then next week, we're going to go into chapter 14, which is a huge chapter for that people use. People, again, I don't like hamburgers, but my job is to review hamburgers. Remember, I've used that analogy before to explain how people that aren't charismatic somehow know better than those of us that are charismatic regarding who's a real prophet and who's not a real prophet. It's like you don't even have discernment. So it's way beyond their pay grade. Well, in the same way, Christians that don't keep the Torah, that don't eat clean, somehow know and understand through some sort of, what's the word, osmosis, that chapter 14 of Romans is a clear case for anti-eating clean. And chapter 14 is one of the chapters used for that. So we're going to be getting into that next week too. But there is something I wanted to read out of the feast book. See, if you know, you know. There is something I want to read out of the feast book. And I'm not sure if I'm going to read it today or if I'm going to wait till next week regarding chapter 14 of Romans, because it's in there. But so in light of all this, I had a thought. Yeah. I had a thought. Let me see here. I had a thought, and the thought is, here's the thought that I had. Non-charismatic New Testament, if a non-charismatic faith profile solely based on the New Testament isn't enough for an individual to navigate our earth realm. and especially our present Earth realm scenario. Let me unpack that. There's so much stuff going on out there. And I mentioned this the other day. I mentioned this on Tuesday. There's so much noise out there. There's so much clatter. There's so much happening. More right now than even 2 years ago. It's pretty amazing. But the stuff that's available, whether it's reels, social media reels, those little videos and stuff, if 25% of what I'm seeing, hell, if 20% of what I'm seeing is true, is real, and not fake, there's no way a non-charismatic faith profile solely based on the New Testament is going to be able to, there's a Spanish word called aguantar. They're not going to be able to bear it. They're not going to be able to handle it. They're not going to be able to navigate it, overcome it, discern it, survive it. What are we talking about? What the hell is up with Hawaii? Okay, the fact that there's no one, the fact that it's what we don't know about what's going on that is even more disturbing. But what's going on there? And why is there so much crazy stuff going on regarding it? Right? There's something not normal going on. Okay, there's that. Look at the Trump indictments, just what's happened in our country in the last 8 months, 10 months. I mean, we do not have a southern border. That means you and I, general public, we don't actually really know what's being allowed in or who's sending who in. And I guarantee you it's not to help us. It's not for our good. Allan, you're talking politics. We're in Romans. Oh, hell yeah, we're talking politics. We're in chapter 13 of Romans. This is all about politics, this chapter. My point is this. We don't know what's really going on. We're the general public. I'm not in secret society, government connection stuff. I'm not a Tom Horn. I'm not a Stephen Quayle. What I do know is this. If only 20% of what we're hearing or seeing out there is true, wow. Jesus called it birth pains. If 20% of what's going on out there is true, everything we thought, everything we believed, everything we warned about is upon us. I'll use the word, I prophesied that what was coming was ancient. So, I mean, laser beams, crazy laser stuff in the skies all over the world, these fires that don't look like, on and on. A non-charismatic New Testament, a non-charismatic faith profile based on solely the New Testament isn't capable of understanding, discerning, navigating, managing, or surviving what is going on out there right now if only 20% of that if only 20% is actually true and real. Revelation, the book of Revelation, the revelation of John, they don't read it as, oh, this is what's coming. It's to them, it's like a Marvel comic movie. I don't think they really see the connection with what they're reading there in Revelation and giants in Genesis 6, satires, lion men, Nephilim, hybrids. That's insanity. To any faith profile that's not charismatic, that's solely based on the New Testament, everything I just said in the last 5 seconds is insane. And it's conspiracy. If you understand Revelation, things coming out of the ground that are going to be free and loosed on the earth to attack humans and bowls being poured out and shofars being blown and seals being open and angels come out of the, angelic beings. I'll say that because it's more an angelic being than an angel coming out of the Euphrates, right? If that's not allegory, it's not fantasy. The revelation of John is, did you know the people in charge of compiling the Bible, right? The pre-Catholics, they spent 10 years debating whether or not they should, what's the word? Canon. They spent more, sorry, my wife just walked in here. They spent 10 plus years, at least 10 years, debating whether they would canonize the revelation of John because it was too supernatural. It was too, there was too much paranormal stuff going on in Revelation. That's why they didn't canonize Enoch. So just the fact that we're dealing with a compilation compiled by people that spent 10 years wondering whether they could or should canonize Revelation is suspect. See, do you understand what I'm saying? A non-charismatic faith profile solely based on the New Testament is absolutely incapable of understanding, teaching, applying, discerning what is happening in our world today, September 1st, 2023. Hell, we've talked about Ephesians 6 and what's coming. I mean, Paul clearly states that we are going to do physical and spiritual warfare with cosmic powers of ruling darkness. A non-charismatic faith profile solely based on the New Testament is incapable. They can't do it. They can't do this. Don't forget Julian's shoes. They can't do this, my baby. They can't. They're not equipped. They don't have the tools necessary. They don't have the. They don't know the word. They don't know. Anyway, that's what I heard this morning. I know it's prophetic. A non-charismatic faith profile solely using the New Testament that's not going to get you through this. And remember what we heard, what's coming is ancient, but we don't have to fear it because we serve the Ancient of Days. It's serious, man. I'm telling you, what's going on, what's happening, what we're seeing, if only 20% of what these crazy videos of all this stuff that's going on. I mean, what we do know is enough for us to go, something's up. There's something going on. Look outside your window. Understand what the New Testament writers are trying to tell you. Understand what Jesus was trying to explain to you. Understand what the revelation of John is saying. And before anyone says, Allan, you should do Revelations next. Well, we're going to, but in a way you won't expect it. But we are. Life among the Terrans. I'm actually feeling prompted so we should probably do 1st and 2nd Corinthians next. Okay. Do you have any questions? I know there's only like 2 or 3 of us. Whoa. Somebody went crazy on the likes. That's awesome. Thank you. Any questions? Go ahead and it's Friday. I have the live chat. Let's finish chapter 13 real quick. All right, submission to the authorities. That's what the English Standard Version calls it. Yeah, I believe Ephesians 6 is actually in play. Um, Here's verse 3. We're going to start in the complete Jewish Bible. For rulers are no terror to good conduct, but to bad, right? If you're doing good, if you're doing what you're supposed to do, you don't have to worry about the authorities. You know how when you're driving down the street and there's a cop gets behind you, somebody in the car's like, there's a cop behind us. It's like, I'm not breaking the law. I'm not worried about the fact that there's a cop beside me or behind me or whatever. I'm not breaking the law. So even if they do pull me over, there's literally no reason for me to worry about the fact that there's a cop right there. But if you're doing bad, right? Rulers are no terror to good conduct, but to bad. Would you like to be unafraid of the person in authority? I love that, the way that says that. Then simply do what is good and you will win his approval, right? If you get pulled over, by the time they get to your window, crack your window about this much, make sure you have your license, your registration, proof of insurance right there on the dashboard. Keep your hands on the wheel and and wait for his instructions. You have to think about him, what his job is. For example, we're talking about police, right? These guys are approaching, they don't know what's going to happen. Every time they walk up to a car, they don't know what's going to happen, right? They don't know if there's a bad hombre. They don't know what's going on. So make it easy for you by making it, help him help you. All right, so talking about this particular person in authority, back to English Standard Version, verse 4. For he is God's servant for your good. Cross-reference, 2 Chronicles 19:6. But if you do wrong, be afraid, for he does not bear the sword in vain. That means if you do wrong, you're probably going to get busted. For he is the servant of God, an avenger who carries out God's wrath on the wrongdoer. Verse 5. Therefore, one must be in subjection. The complete Jewish Bible says it like this. Another reason to obey is to avoid God's wrath, but also for the sake of conscience. Verse 6, complete Jewish Bible. This is also why you pay taxes, for the authorities are God's public officials constantly attending to these duties, right? You pay taxes, that pays for infrastructure. Just like the tithe was specifically only for the Levite. So, and we explain this again in the feast book. Cheers. There's tithing, there's offerings, there's gifts, right? Tithes go to the Levite. Offerings and gifts were more dispersed in a broader, right? Because the Levites had no inheritance. The tithe was specifically for the Levites because that's how they got fed. That's how they got paid. That's how they were able to live. The Levites got the tithe. The tithe was exclusively for the Levites. In the same way, it says, this is why you pay taxes, right? Okay. Verse 7, pay everyone what he is owed. If you owe the tax collector, pay your taxes. If you owe the revenue collector, pay revenue. If you owe someone respect, pay him respect. If you owe someone honor, pay him honor. Do you see how different these 7 verses are when you read it in context, when you read it with understanding, when you read it with, spiritual discernment? I mean, it's not just about, oh, you better submit to the authorities. No, there's a practical application here. Hey, do this so it goes good for you. And this is why you pay taxes, to pay for these people who are serving as God's servants for your good. See? Context. Okay. All right, here we go. Verse 8, chapter 13. The English Standard Version, this is clickbait. The English Standard Version calls this section fulfilling the law through love. And there's 8 through... What am I doing here? 8 through 14. All right, so that's what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 verses, right? 7 verses are left in the chapter under the heading, fulfilling the law through love. But not all of these verses, not even the majority of these verses are even about keeping the Torah through love. And I'll show you. So I think that title is disingenuous. I think it's, like I said, it's clickbait. because it's just not, no. We will definitely be going back and forth between the English Standard Version and the English and the Complete Jewish Bible, simply because it's good. It's good opening. Okay, verse 8. Owe no one anything except to love each other. Your cross-reference is Leviticus 19:13, Proverbs 3:27 through 28. For the one who loves another has fulfilled the law. The Complete Jewish Bible. For whoever loves his fellow human being has fulfilled Torah. All right, and then Paul explains what he means by that. Okay, so it's really easy for these people that don't read contextually, that do one verse thing. The one who loves another has fulfilled the law. See, I just have to love my neighbor and I fulfill the law. I don't have to do anything else. That is about as demonically ignorant as you can get. But see, Paul continues. How do we know? Because, well, in the English Standard Version, the next verse, verse 9, begins with the word for, F-O-R. Even the Complete Jewish Bible has that word. Okay, verse 9, English Standard Version. For the commandments, comma, quote, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not murder, you shall not steal, you shall not covet. That's 4. If you add the Sabbath, that's 5. And then you have the other 5 that talk about how to serve God. I don't know if you know this, but the 10 commandments are split into two sections, with keeping the Sabbath in the middle. Well, it's really 5 versus 4, with keeping the Sabbath as the middle. You have half of the 10 commandments. When they asked Jesus, what's the greatest commandment? He said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind. And then he added a bonus one, extra credit, love your neighbor as yourself. But if you do those 2, you fulfill the entire law. The entire law is suspended, hung, based, founded, established on those 2. And so they go, see, I don't have to do anything else. I don't have to do anything else when it comes to the law. All I have to do is love God with all my heart, strength, soul, and mind, and love my neighbor as myself. But then the question is, okay, how do you do that? And as soon as if they're smart, they won't say anything because they'll know that they're going to be incriminating themselves. But most people aren't smart, so they'll actually start giving you examples of how to love God with all your hearts. Well, no, they actually won't because they don't know. But a lot of people will give examples on how to love your neighbor as yourself, and that's when you go, see, everything you just listed, those are Torah commands. You can't just do this without actually, right? It's a drop down. Here's your header. How do you do that? How do you love your neighbor as yourself? Well, how about you don't commit adultery? How about you don't murder? How about you don't steal? How about you don't covet? That's why it says that in the 10 Commandments, because they're giving examples of how to love your neighbor as yourself. And then the other one's how to love God. No other gods, don't take the name in vain. No other gods before me, right? Keep his Sabbath things, okay, right? Okay, so Paul is saying, he's giving an example of 4 commandments that have to do with love, with human-to-human interaction. He's citing Exodus 20, 13 through 17, Deuteronomy 5, 17 through 21. Again, we are in chapter 13 of Romans. He's writing to Romans, Gentiles. The apostle to the Gentiles is teaching Gentiles about Torah and how to keep it. He's not doing all this so that they don't obey and keep the commandments. He's doing this so that they will, so that these pagans without a reference experience will have an understanding of how to serve Jesus, or how to serve God, the Torah, in light of the fulfillment of Messiah through Jesus of Nazareth. I don't understand. Okay. It's a spiritual revelation. You can't look at a non-believer and go, I don't understand how he's not getting it. Why he won't submit and serve Jesus. Well, it's a spiritual thing. And here's how we always explain it. Joe's whatever, drug addict, thief, womanizer, whatever. He's a bad hombre. I'll just keep using that. And I can talk to him about Jesus till I'm blue in the face. I can have words of knowledge. I could heal him, all sorts of things. But until God goes ding and gives him the revelation of his need for Messiah, because God draws men into himself, Joe's not going to get it. It's a spiritual revelation. In the same way, charismatica, baptism in the Holy Spirit, speaking in tongues, healing the sick, casting out demons, prophesying, raising the dead, all that stuff. That's a spiritual revelation. In the same exact way, I'm supposed to keep God's commandments. I'm supposed to keep God's covenants. Well, that's now a spiritual revelation because we've done away with it for almost 2,000 years. We, as the Romanized Western evangelical Protestant Catholic foundational church. Okay. Verse 9. For the commandments, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not murder, you shall not steal, you shall not covet. And I just gave you the actual Torah verses he's citing. And then he says, and any other commandment, are summed up in this word. You shall love your neighbor as yourself, citing Leviticus 19:18. Love does no wrong to a neighbor. Therefore, love is the fulfilling of the law. All right, check this out. If you've got these two commandments Jesus said were the most important, and they break down into these 5, there's another place where he says that the 2 summarize the 10. Logic, 1 + 1 equals, the 10 would then summarize the 606. I know everybody believes it's 613. We explained that in the feast book. Ooh, that's number 3. We explain how there's 7 rabbinical laws added to the 606 to make 613. Okay. So since love does not do harm to a neighbor, verse 10, complete Jewish Bible, therefore love is the fullness of Torah, right? If God is love, love's going to be a blanket. Paul is not saying he's not doing the hippy dippy thing. He's not a hippie. He's not wearing Birkenstocks. He's not saying peace and love, baby. All you have to do is love one another and you've fulfilled the law. Well, that's what he did say, Alan. Yeah, I know that's what he said, but you have to actually understand what he's talking about. What is he talking about? If you do these things, if you love your neighbor, which includes doing these things, not having sex with his wife, not killing him, not stealing from him, bringing him his cow that's wandered off out of the pen, right, etc., 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 then you're doing the Torah. See, to me, that's just clear as okay. So you have fulfilling the law through love. That's the title. And we've got maybe 1, 2, 3 verses regarding that. Because in verse 11, right? Because 11 through 14, 4 verses, maybe it's half and half, right? 8, 9, 10, 8, 9, 10, 8, 9, 10. No, it's 3 to 4. Anyway, my point is, I think there's potentially an agenda, fulfilling the law through love, to support that narrative of you don't have to actually keep Torah, because he says in verse 11, besides this, you know the time. He's basically saying, hey, besides that, he's moving on. He's going somewhere else. And then here's what he says. Verse 11, English Standard Version. Besides this, you know the time, that the hour has come for you to wake from sleep. For salvation is nearer to us now than when we first believed. Wow. That absolutely supports the concept of it's a progression. It's a progressive thing. It's not once saved, always saved. If I'm closer to salvation today than I was 43 years ago, because that's how that would apply today to me. I love this. Verse 12. The night is far gone. We've talked about this before. The day is at hand. So then, let us cast off the works of darkness and put on the armor of light. Oh, I love that. We've talked about that. Complete Jewish Bible, verse 12. The night is almost over. The day is almost here. So let us put aside the deeds of darkness, which would be the works of Torah that James talks about, which would be don't commit adultery, don't kill, don't murder, don't eat unclean. Keep the feasts, remember my Sabbaths, right? Let us put aside the deeds of darkness and arm ourselves with the weapons of light. See, either way, we're putting on armor of light and we're arming ourselves with weapons of light. Ephesians 6, baby. I'm telling you. How can you possibly take on ruling powers of darkness, cosmic powers of ruling darkness? We've talked about that. How are we going to take on darkness without armor and weapons of light? Are you seeing this? Verse 13, English Standard. Let us walk properly. Complete Jewish Bible. Let us live properly. Let me do English Standard, and then I'll do Complete Jewish because I just love the verbiage. It's more filling. It's like it's like the glue that keeps it together. When you look at both sides, in my opinion, let us walk properly as in the daytime, not in orgies and drunkenness, not in sexual immorality and sensuality, not in quarreling and jealousy. Oops. We just blew the whole concept that all I have to do is love to keep the law. I don't actually have to keep the law. That's not true. Because everything that Paul just said right here of what not to do is keeping the law. See, you can't just love. That's nebulous. And they want to keep it that way because they don't want to have to be committed. They don't want a standard. They don't want to be locked in. They don't want absolutes. Absolutes are no fun. It's just a nebulous love fest. I just have to love and I keep the law. I don't actually have to keep the law. I don't have to actually eat clean. I don't have to actually keep the Sabbath. I don't have to actually keep the feast. Yeah, you do. And then Paul right here lists in verse 13, he's actually listing the things, examples of how to keep the law, how to love. Let us walk properly as in the daytime, not in orgies, drunkenness, sexual immorality, and sensuality, not in quarreling and jealousy. But put on the Lord Jesus Christ and make no provision for the flesh to gratify its desires. Put on Messiah, right? Not just the mind of Christ. We're putting on the armor of light. We're grabbing weapons of light, and we are making no provision for the flesh to gratify its desires. Why? Contextually, 13 chapters, because we are walking in the Spirit. I sound like an old-time circus tent revivalist. All I have to do is learn how to say, and God, and I'd have it, right? Oh my gosh. Okay, verse 13, Complete Jewish Bible. Let us live properly, as people do in the daytime. Oh, I love that. Not partying and getting drunk, not engaging in sexual immorality and other excesses, not quarreling and being jealous, because, right, people do bad things in the dark. Parents, old school parents, nothing good happens at night, right? Fire and brimstone teacher. All right, I love that. Let us live properly as people do in the daytime, as people do in the light. Verse 14, instead, clothe yourselves with the Lord Yeshua the Messiah. I'm imparting the Lord Yeshua the Messiah over you. The clothing, that mantle, that garment. Put on your armor of light. Pick up your weapons of light. And don't waste your time thinking about how to provide for the sinful desires of your old nature. Shabbat Shalom.
The views and opinions expressed during our broadcasts are solely those of the broadcast producers, hosts, and/or guests, etc., and are not necessarily the views or opinions of the Travelogue Network, its sponsors, or affiliates.